Hello, my name is Evan Manning, and this is my Module 7 Leadership Pyramid for AEP 855. There were two subsections of information that we were to discuss. The first was an overall sort of description of the human resource frame of leadership that was written about and contextualized by Bowman and Deal in 13. There were a couple takeaways here. The first was the takeaway from the narrator, which was discussing the percentage of the way in which that funds were being used in the school to sort of maybe justify the human resources frame of mind as opposed to a more utilitarian mechanical lens. And the idea that 78% of the overall budget for the state was going into salary and benefits, which obviously is functionally people, is interesting because if that much of our funds it goes to that, then shouldn't that be a lot of our focus in the way in which that we run a school? And I thought that was interesting. Also, part of that HR lens was that combination of the people themselves, individual skills, and communication relationships, really focusing on those types of more soft skills through their version of the pyramid as far as a functional brief description. There were also four key assumptions that Bowman and Deal articulated. These included an organizational sort of human resources model to look down upon the way in which that we conceptualize hierarchical leadership. Second was that the people themselves and the organization need each other, sort of a symbiotic relationship, if you will. And then 3 and 4, according to the actual video, were sort of inverses of each other. So I'll sort of talk about them in a connected way, which was that 3, when fit is poor between the organization and the individual, then both suffer. So it's not like you can have one situation, either the organization itself or the actual individual person flourish while the other one does poorly. They don't really work in opposition that way, as maybe some would think. Rather, when the fit is poor, they both go down, and the actual productivity of the organization as a whole and with the individual both go down. And this is correlative in the inverse as well, which was the number 4 isolated in the video, which was talking about how when the fit, however, is good or the match is excellent, then they both do well. And obviously, when one does well, the organization, then the also individuals inside of it get pulled up with the overall movement of the organization. But also, when people or individuals are ineffective or the fit starts to go down, then the entire organization moves down. So I thought that was insightful for number 1, the overall description of Bowman and Deal. The second thing that we were supposed to discuss was describing or being able to identify visually some form of a leadership pyramid ourselves, contextually through the lens of a few different subgroups of individuals. Specifically, it states that, in other words, what would your organization's hierarchical structure look like, and why? So after looking at that and spending some time really thinking, contextualizing the culture and the overall leadership vision that I had and what sort of drives not only me, but the sort of founding or guiding principles that I would have as an educator, I came up with the following pyramid, which might be a little bit different than others. So I will put it sort of in front here. Okay, so hopefully you can pause that if you wanted to actually see it. I tried to go back and forth on the computer screen, but it was ineffective. So I have that actually on my wall right now, so I just took it down. So sort of explaining it, I have students at the bottom of the pyramid, but the pyramid was inverse. So it sort of functions as an explanation of the lens as the administrator looking through the decision-making calculus, where the students are the functional foundation So they're like the largest capacity of the individuals. However, they're not conceptually at the bottom of the decision-making leadership either. So I sort of want students or the relationships for individuals and the needs of students to be the foundational principle at the top of the pyramid, although obviously they might not be at the very top as far as who actually constructs leadership. So doing the inverse pyramid made some sense to me. The next level down in the pyramid would be the staff, which included the maintenance, food, transport, office, nursing, and paraprofessional sort of groups and individuals. Obviously, they are important, and my job as a leader should be to make sure that I am prioritizing what they need in order to best help the students. That being said, as far as who's actually making individual decisions, that may not be true. So again, sort of the next level in the pyramid made sense to me. The third tier of the inverted pyramid was the counselors and teachers. Again, sort of above the administrative team as far as importance or vision or prioritization. Also in size with the way in which the pyramid was constructed. And I think that, again, as a administrative team, the decision of where you prioritize that juxtaposition between the students and the teachers and counselors was important. And to me, putting them closer to the administrative team as far as decision calculus, but below students as far as like an overarching vision or lens was important to me. And then at the bottom of the pyramid, but at the functional top of the decision-making calculus is the administrative team. Obviously, the administrative team has to be assertive and be the ones willing to make the decisions that they need to make for the good of everyone that is beneath them. But again, I think that if you view it as a top-down chart, then that lack of humility, hubris, things that we've discussed in previous modules, the ability to try to do things for you and then hope they trickle down to students, to justify decisions for counselors or staff, and then hope that students get involved is not the way that I want sort of my leadership vision to be. So that's why that prioritization of student first lens I thought was important, with admin actually at the bottom as far as who I am focused on or deciding for the decisions that we make, even if those decisions are ultimately from that subgroup. And then on the fringes of the pyramid is external stakeholders and the community itself. Again, I wanted them to make sure that they were involved in that process because they obviously are something that you should consider. But I also don't think that we should make at least a large percentage of our decisions predicated on what community or external stakeholders want. I think if you do that, then we start making decisions that aren't prioritizing students or student needs and student learning first. And that's, again, not what I want to be the overarching driving force behind the culture and the dynamic at the school that I would help lead. Although, obviously, considering both the needs and wants and ideas and legal and ethical concerns of stakeholders and community members and parents is obviously extremely important. So I think that's why I sort of chose the maybe outside the box sort of thought of the inverted pyramid. But I also thought that it was really insightful and something that I not only thought was helpful, but something that I wanted to physically keep. And maybe it could actually be something that stays with me post this class. So for all of those reasons, I thank you for your time. Bye.